Being opposite is here now. I mean, if you know your stuff, if you know your Joe Meek, if you know your British kind of 60s music, well, you'll know Clem Cattini. Even if you don't know this stuff, you'll have heard him play, because he played not just on that, but on just about everything, I suppose. Do you know any idea how many records you have played on, Clem?
I haven't got a clue as how many. I mean, I supposedly played on 42 number ones. That is not my. I haven't said that. No, it's nothing to do with me. That's what I've been told.
42 number one records.
Yeah.
And
quite
a lot of rock ones as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to give you an example of one?
Go on then.
Save your laugh for me, when I'm round.
You played on that?
I certainly did.
You star, you.
I know.
As you've heard, Clem Cattini's here, but he's not alone. We're also joined by Tony Morrison, known to some as Tony Feedback, former member of the Angelic Upstarts. But the reason both of them are here, I guess, is essentially because they're music fans, really, and fans of one of the great music institutions in this town. You must have noticed, because there's been a lot of stuff about it appearing in the press and on the radio and all over, that the 100 Club is under threat, basically. Now, if that doesn't mean anything to you, well, you can't ever have been there then, I suspect. But if, like me, you spent your youth walking down those stairs to go and see dodgy bands and sweating, or maybe you still go down those steps to see dodgy bands and sweat and drink and dance or whatever, you'll know a bit about the history of the 100 Club. I know more than most, because a few years back I presented a radio series for Radio 4 about the history of the club, and the fact they went right back to the 1940s.
Yeah.
It was kind of birth of the British jazz scene was there, British rock and roll, British rhythm and blues, British blues. So you can just carry on right up to the present day. But will it carry on beyond that? Anyway, that's what we're here to talk about, because the two guys opposite are both kind of involved in a campaign to try and keep the club alive. Clem Cattini and Tony Morrison, welcome to BBC London.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin with you, Tony. How did you get involved in this? What was the story?
It's quite simple, really. Someone had posted a page on Facebook, and I joined that when there was about 60 people, and it was about the 100 Club closing. And I was chatting to a mate of mine called Paul, and he said, he was going, I said, why don't someone do something constructive then? Because all this talking isn't going to save 100 Club. And he started saying, you're a capitalist, it's all right for you to say that. And I said, okay, if I can get 20 mates.
If I can make some capital.
Yeah, well, if I can find 20 people prepared to put in a tenner, I said, I'll start a campaign to raise money to cover the next quarter's rent. And within 5 minutes, I had 20, 30 people. So we got that going, and that was the original plan, just to cover the next.
To keep it alive for a month,
or
a quarter, or whatever.
For the next 3 months of the new year, and then from there, the owners got in touch with us and said, well, actually, it needs longer term sort of finance. So then we started the campaign with my mates Jim, Lenny, and so on, and we're all going strong. We've got just under 150 grand now in pledges, and we've got benefit gigs coming up. Things like this bring the money rolling in. So.
What's the actual aim? I mean, clearly it is to keep the club alive, but what are you trying to do? You're trying to get a consortium to run it as a non-profit making organisation? How do you see it?
Well, my ultimate goal is to see it open so I can continue playing there. I've been playing there for 30 years now, and that's purely a selfish point of view, I'm sure, but there's lots of other people who'd like to play there. So I don't care how it stays open. All I want to do is know that if I want to go there this time next year, or in 5 years, 10 years' time, it will still be there. And whether we're the people, what our goal is, what our proposal is, that we raise money from the public, and then we start a committee, like a 6-member committee that are voted for by the public. I don't even know if I'd be on that. I don't even know if I want to be. But the idea is that the people who've put the money in have a say in what happens with the 100 Club. I'd like to bring it back to having new music maybe twice a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, whatever the quiet nights are, as well as the oldies, the Wilco Johnsons and so on. And then just bring it back to a place where the next Sex Pistols could maybe be discovered. And, we're lacking.
Why are you involved in this, Clem?
Well, because I've played it quite a few times. In the last 3 years, I think I must have played it at least 4 times each year, because every year they have a Two Eyes reunion.
Right.
But people who play down the Two Eyes and work the Two Eyes, the singers, the Vince Eagers and people like that, they have done it twice, 3 times a year. They have a meet there. Well, I mean, if this closes, what are we going to do for that?
Where do you go? Yeah.
Where do you go? I mean, the sad part about it is where did the new groups go? I mean, when I started, in my career, I could play a different club every night of the week for a month. There's none there. Where do these kids learn their trade?
Certainly in central London.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's almost nothing left, is there? Really?
No, exactly.
But the problem is as well, even directly out of central London, inner London, whatever you want to call it, you know, you go to a place, maybe the Bull and Gate, somewhere like that, they put 5 bands on a night, they sell you X amount of tickets for this much, that's your money. Your people who come to watch you, they don't watch the next band, so there's nowhere developing new bands, you know, otherwise you're on the Mean Fiddler type, you know, treadmill, and if you fall out with them, you ain't got a gig anywhere.
I mean, I remember as a kid, I mean, I was growing up in London, you know, I'm sort of 14, 15, and at that age, you could go to a pub, no one asked you for your ID or any of that sort of stuff, and I remember going to see, over a relatively short period of time back in the 70s, Ian Dury, Elvis Costello, Kokomo, Dr. Feelgood, all these bands playing in boozers for literally 50 pence a time, and probably the pint of half a bitter if I could persuade a barman to sell me one.
Well, this is the other problem though. The whole London pub circuit's gone. That all went through.
Because they're two in the bar.
That's right.
So
You weren't allowed more
than two people. If you
musicians.
do, they have to have fire doors, they have to have special licenses, and so you had more than 2 musicians. That was it. Now, you know, places like the 100 Club, you could have a whole great big band there. There's not a problem. You know, I mean, a lot of the pubs, you know, I mean, I know a lot of the pubs I've worked in myself where they still have a 4 or 5 piece band in there. I mean, illegally, I suppose.
Sure.
So what you know, the whole situation of the music scene in this country, and let's face it, we were the forefront of music in the 60s.
And we sort of still are, and yet I don't know how.
I don't understand.
I mean, there are places. I live in Camden Town, and there are places where people can play, and there are pubs that have bands playing, and there is a scene out there. Yeah. But I do think it's increasingly just in a very few places.
Well, it is, but Dingwalls in Camden is a prime example. It used to be the late night club. You'd go to the Marquee, which used to shut at 11, bands had to finish by 1:45. You'd go off up to Dingwalls, you'd bump into Lemmy or Randy Bowie or whatever, and it's just the Speakeasy, another one. That's gone. I never went there because I was like 15 when that shut or something, but, you know, all those great places, the Pegasus, the Fulham Graham, whatever, they've all gone. You know, the Marquee went.
I've done all those, you know. When I was with Johnny Kidd, we played the 100 Club, and we used to use it as a rehearsal. Yeah. Not that was rehearsal, but it was a good bit for us to try out new numbers and things and see the reaction from the public.
Now, I guess what some people are going to be saying is, and, you know, these are hard economic times, some people are going to be saying, well, if the place can't pay for itself, if it doesn't make enough money by getting punters through the doors, well, it doesn't have any right to be open.
That's my first thought. First thought. We've got one of the most expensive shopping areas in the world, and we've got a club for live music there. That club, I've played there many years ago, not recently, where there'd be 600 or 700 people there. Now there's a 350 fire limit, so that is a good point, you know. So you've got a club that holds 700 people, but you can only half fill it, and it's capacity because of our health and safety or fire limits or whatever. That could be a point. But with our proposal, we're asking lots of people to give a little, from £10. If you give £10, you'll have the same vote for running the club as someone who's given 100,000.
So the idea is almost to make it like a proper club again. Yeah, you can sort of join it and you can be part of it and
totally.
Because that has worked. It's worked in you know, all the sort of members clubs. Now, this is not going to be the Groucho Club. It's not going to be swanky and swish. And, it's still going to be...
You don't want it to be.
You don't want it to be. It's meant to be grotty, isn't it?
It's rock and roll club. That's what it is, a rock and roll club, you know, which... I mean, I've had some great times down there, you know. I mean, as I say, in the last 3 years, I must have played it a dozen times.
But as you said, it's a rock and roll club, but then to other people, it's a trad jazz club.
Yeah, exactly.
To others, it's a blues club. Because it can do all of those things.
That's a great club, you know, even when
it's an empty room, it's just a blank canvas, it can be whatever, and my thing, I'd love to see it breaking new acts again. That's what I would really love.
I agree.
Like Clem doing his 2 eyes, and people like me playing to 20 people down there, you know.
And the last time I played it, there was more than that.
And you took the crowds down when you did
the 2 eyes thing. Yeah, it's always pretty packed. You know, you come out very sweaty. Let's put it that way. You know, I mean,
you should.
Must be 200 or 300 people down there. You know.
Now I know you've got a fundraiser coming up in terms of kind of gigs and all that sort of stuff. You see, the other thing you might imagine is that of all the very wealthy rock and rollers, and I'll exclude you two from this.
I'm glad you did. I'm still waiting my royalties from Telstar. Go on.
Of all the very wealthy rock and rollers who've played down there and started their careers there or whatever, that there might be someone who could put their hand in their pocket with a few bob.
Well, it's funny, that has been mooted.
Well, you know, and the other thing is, I've got kind of morally, I think, well, Why should they? You know, people like us are still playing there after all this time.
Yeah,
30 years, you probably nearer, 50 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
But someone like Mick Jagger, he's only ever played there, you know, or an alternative, someone who played there in 1963 who's now gone on to play in stadiums. It was just a gig. Why should they? But morally, I think, yeah, you know, it's part of your heritage. You had the opportunity. Give it back. You know, people made a lot of money from music in the old days. Some people.
Yes.
We didn't.
We didn't.
But that's beside the point. But the fact is, yeah, I think morally someone should. And I'm not going to say a name, but there is a pop star who donated an awful lot of money, yesterday, tens and tens of thousands of pounds, to our cause. So there is one out of all them famous people who's done it, and that's brilliant, you know, but I'm not going to say his name because he might be embarrassed.
But I mean, the thing is, if I was in the position of some of these guys, you know, I mean, it was the beginning of my career. How many guys down here started their careers, you know? You look back and think, well, if it wasn't for places like that, we wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't be doing it now, probably. You know, what the Two Eyes, the Marquee, the 100 Club.
And that's the only one we've got left.
Exactly, that's it now. You know, the part of her heritage, where's it going? You know?
I mean, there was a time when, you know, every third door in Soho, you'd get music behind it, but it just isn't the case.
But the thing is, as well, you can't move a venue. They tried it with the Marquee.
It doesn't work.
You know, you can't do it. You've got to have...
Ronnie's moved, and I guess that worked.
Well, up to a point.
Well, did it move?
Well, no, it started off in Gerrard Street.
That's right.
Yeah, but then the Marquee started in Oxford Street, but when it went to Wardour Street, but that is in the days, in the 60s, when you could.
Yes.
But nowadays, it ain't viable.
No.
Now, Dingwalls is open, but it's nothing like
It's a shadow of its
Yeah, I mean, I've been to see bands in this big auditorium with like 30 people there at Dingwalls.
Yeah.
Look, if you're interested, first of all, give us the website.
Yeah, it's www.savethe100 in figures club.co.uk. That's www.savethe100club.co.uk. And we've got a fundraiser on the 25th of November down at the 100 Club. Right. We have got an act to be confirmed on Monday, but we're appealing now to any big pop stars listening who fancy coming down with a guitar or whatever. Please get in touch with us. You can get in touch with any of us through that website address, and we'll welcome you with open arms, and I'll even bring a Marshall amp down for you.
So I'm free.
Was that jump, Clem?
Yeah. I must say, Clem never played on any Angelic Upstarts record.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
What are you doing these days, Clem?
I'm still sort of doing things with the Tornadoes, other things. I'm supposed to be retired, but I keep getting things. I'm doing some recording with Paul Weller, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, I did a track on his last album, Save the Nation, was it? What were they called?
Save the 100 Club.
Yeah, Save the 100 Club, yeah. And
right. Well, so tell us when the fundraiser is again.
That's on the 25th of November. That's the first one. And then there's also one at a place called Charlotte Street Blues in Charlotte Street, the West End. That's on the 28th. And we've got Clem playing, Zoot Money, Billy Franks from the Faith Brothers, a girl called Tracy Young, who was in the Style Council, Karina Grayson, and a compere called Lenny Dyer.
So all of that's coming up on the 28th.
28th at Charlotte Street. And then also on the 1st of December, but this isn't anything to do with us, this is running concurrently, there's a gig down at the 100 Club with Ronnie Wood, Chris Barber and Mick Taylor playing.
Okay.
So that'll be fantastic.
So there are lots of events taking place, and there are people trying to save this. I mean, if you were a gambling man, right? I don't know if you are. You might be. I've got no idea. Yeah. Would you put 100 quid on the 100 Club being here for 2 years from now?
I'd put 100 quid on it being here in 5 years from now.
Really? You're optimistic about it?
I'm totally optimistic. Right. There's 3 or 4 of us who've dedicated probably 10, 11 hours a day to this for the last 5 or 6 weeks. We ain't got the money to save it ourselves, otherwise we would have gone off and done it quietly and just tried to take it over. But the public have been extremely generous. One pop star has been extremely generous, and a few other people as well. And people like you helping us publicise this is doing no harm at all. I think we'll be there.
Give us the website address one more time.
www.savethe100club.co.uk.
Clem Cattini and Tony Morrison, thank you both very much. And more power to whichever bit of you use your elbows, particularly important to my kneecap. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Still to come on the show, well, we're going to get some career arts.